I feel like worst case scenario for me is working in a job that I hate for the rest of my life. Feeling stuck, not feeling like I have any type of freedom and feeling like there's no way out. But that's how I got started with my business. That's how I got started with my podcast. I'm already living in worst case scenario. So it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're doing something, you can get out of that situation. Every little thing that you do is going to help. My name is Sarah Kuhn, and this is the Introvert's Guide to Starting a Business, where we talk about starting your own business through blogging and podcasting and how to do all of this as an introvert. I'll share practical tips on blogging, marketing, selling, and fighting all of the fears that come up along the way. I'll also share with you my personal journey of starting a business as an introvert, learning how to put myself out there, and finding self-love in the process. I'll show you how to create a business and a life that you absolutely love. Hi there. I have been having a massive problem with imposter syndrome lately. I took a couple of weeks off from my podcast, one because my mom was visiting, but the other was because I really just didn't know what to say. I'm kind of in this spot where I'm feeling very down and very lost. I have a plan. I know what I should do, but I'm still stuck. This is what we call imposter syndrome. And I'm sure that if you're not feeling like this right now, you will at some point, unfortunately. So today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome, what it is, and how to get past it. Before we get started, I wanted to tell you about an ebook that I have called 10,000 Followers. It is all about building a massive and authentic audience on Instagram. I did that in less than 6 months, and I know that you can too. So I put all of the details of the exact strategy that I use to grow my Instagram audience into this book, which is well over a $49 value, and it's yours right now for only $7. You can find it at sarahkuhn.co, and there is also a link in the show notes for it as well. I also wanted to tell you about this course that I'm creating that's all about Instagram. This course will include everything that you need to know to build your business with Instagram. Everything from growing your following to creating graphics to converting those followers into customers. Because this is a new course, I'm looking for 10 beta testers who will get the course completely for free. So make sure that you check it out. It's going to be a completely amazing course. There is a link for it in the show notes. Also, one more reminder before we get started, you can watch the video podcast at youtube.com/infjwoman, and you can find all the links for everything that we're talking about at podcast.sarahkuhn.co. So I wanted to start by telling you a little story. This past week, well, it's been a couple of weeks ago now, I had an opportunity to visit Newport, Rhode Island with my mom. I live in Boston, so Newport is just I think it was like an hour and a half drive. And we drove down there because there are these amazing mansions down there. The people who built them called them cottages, but they're really more like mansions. If you're watching the podcast on YouTube, you can see a picture of one of them that we had the opportunity to tour, and it's called The Breakers. It was built by the Vanderbilts, which were a huge family back at the turn of the century. They were involved in shipping and railroads, and so they had a ton of money. And one of the houses that they built is this one. It's oceanfront in Newport, and like I said, it's called The Breakers. It's 125,000 square feet. In today's money, it's worth over $50 million. It was such an amazing house to walk through. I love the history. I love that there's so much of it that's still original. In this picture, you can see on the walls, there's actually platinum that coats some of the walls. And there's still a lot of the original furniture, and I mean, everything just looks completely amazing. It's almost overwhelming to walk through it because there's so much to see, and all of it is just so gorgeous and so wonderful. This is my favorite view. One of the balconies I think this one was on the second floor. It faces the ocean, and so you can look out and see the ocean. And it was an absolutely beautiful day that we were there. So it provided some amazing pictures. The reason that I'm telling you about this house is because while I was walking through this house, I was having this internal struggle. My first thought is, wow, this is an amazing house. I cannot believe something like this exists. And my second thought is, wouldn't it be awesome to live in a house like this? It's so completely amazing. And right behind that thought comes the self-doubt and the torture of, why do you think that you deserve something like this? You could never have a house like this. Why would you even think that? You need to like tone it down. Maybe you could have a house that's oceanfront, but it would never look like this. And so the whole time that we're walking through this house, there was just this internal struggle in my mind of, oh, I would love to have a house like this. And oh no, I'm not worth it. I could never own a house like this because it's too expensive and my business could never make that much money and I don't deserve it, really, is what it comes down to, which was a lot of the self-doubt for me. It always comes back to, I don't deserve it. But I wanted to talk about this today because I have the same experience that you guys do of canceling out my dreams or tampering them down to where they feel like they are reasonable, right? Especially when it comes to money. When I think about money, I always think that I need just enough, right? I want enough to pay my bills. I want roughly the same amount of money that I make from my day job. I would be happy with that. That's enough. But is it really enough? Do I deserve more than just enough? Don't you deserve more than just enough? We need money, right? We need it to run our business. The more money that you have, the bigger of a business that you can have, the more things that you can do with it, right? But we also need money personally. We need money to pay for our house. If you live in an expensive city like I do, you need a lot more money to pay for your house. We also need money for things like food and clothes. And we need money to be able to help people. In fact, the more money that we have, the more people that we can help. So many times we get so scared of our dreams that we end up editing them down to fit what we think is actual reality. And I saw this video that Mel Robbins was talking about this same thing, and I wanted to share it with you.
Too often in my life, I have had a mindset where I'm hedging my bets, where I'm not going big enough because I'm scared I won't make it. I'm scared I won't have the money. I'm scared. And so I need to have the freedom. I want to go all in. Because then when I have the vision...
And then if it doesn't occur, you're not disappointed? If it doesn't?
Why would I even allow it in my mind that it's not going to occur? If you allow the thought that something that you dream about is not going to occur, and you better shrink it now, you know what you're doing? You're feeling this is such a f***ed up thing that people do to themselves, Chris. You make yourself shrink your dreams so that you're not disappointed in case it doesn't turn out. And in shrinking your dreams, number one, you're now not even fully invested in this big vision. So you've robbed yourself of that inspiration. And number two, because you're shrinking your dreams so that you're not disappointed in case it doesn't work out, you're feeling disappointment now. So this strategy you put into place to manage your disappointment that some future thing might not turn out is creating disappointment in your life right now.
You guys, I felt so called out when I watched that video. It's so true. I've been creating disappointment for myself because I feel like I don't deserve so many things. And that was exactly what I was feeling when I was going through the breakers. I feel like I don't deserve to live in a house like that. I feel like I don't deserve to have a business that's successful enough to pay for that kind of house. I bet you've been creating disappointment for yourself as well. Maybe not on the same scale that I am, although I hope that you do dream as big as I do, but I'm sure that you're doing it on some level. Not only are we creating disappointment, but some of us are accepting it too.
The pity thing, not good. If you want crappy things to stop happening to you, then stop accepting crap and demand something more.
I love this video because Christina was one of my favorite characters on Grey's Anatomy, and I'm so sad that she's gone, but she's so right. Like I said, some of us, me included, we don't just create disappointment, but we accept it. We accept it in all different forms. I've had so many bosses in my life who've treated me so terribly. And for a while, I thought that I deserved that kind of treatment. But then I realized I don't deserve that kind of treatment. But I still felt stuck because you have to have a job, right? But you don't have to accept crap. And it's high time for me to demand something more. It's high time for you to demand something more as well. So let's go back to imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments or talents and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. This is something that happens to me all the time. Every single time I sit down to write a blog post, every time I go to record a new podcast episode, especially now because I changed my podcast to where I'm talking about something new about business. And even though I have a lot of experience in business, I still feel like I don't know enough. I still feel like a fraud. It still keeps me stuck sometimes. I keep going back to these questions of, who am I to do this? Like, what if it doesn't work? What if somebody does call me out as a fraud? What if I'm not really an expert? I mean, I have 10 years of experience working in digital marketing. Isn't that enough? I even spend all of my free time learning about all kinds of different things around digital marketing. Everything that I can soak up, I'm constantly learning. And yet I still feel like a fraud. I'm positive that you go through these questions too, because every single one of my clients feels the same way. Every single one of my coaching clients deals with this. This is the place where everybody gets the most stuck of like, who am I, right? You feel paralyzed by these feelings. But there are some simple things that you can do to get past these feelings. And I wanted to share those with you because, like I said, I've been feeling this a lot in the last couple of weeks. So going through this exercise has helped me as much as I hope that it helps you. So here's what you need to do to get past imposter syndrome. The first thing is to realize that every single person feels this way, right? I sat down and made a list of some of my favorite people who work in this industry or a similar industry. And it helps me to have their names in front of me. Because when you say every person feels this way, it's kind of just like this statement that's like, oh yeah, that doesn't really make any sense, but okay, I guess. But when I sit down and say, you know what? Kathy Heller feels this way. Amy Porterfield feels this way. Evan Carmichael feels this way. Glennon Doyle, Elizabeth Gilbert, all of these people feel this way. These are people who have tens of millions of downloads on their podcasts. They have millions of subscribers on YouTube. They have books that millions of people have read, and they still feel this way. Whoever your favorite person is who inspires you, they feel this way too. It helps me because I realize I'm not alone, that every single person out there is going to feel this way, and regardless of how long you've been in the business, or how many downloads your podcast has, how many people have read your blog, you're still going to feel this way. It's just part of the process. And it's okay because everybody else does too. The second thing that you should do is recognize everything else that's going on in your life, especially this year. I'm recording this in August of 2020, and there's a lot that's gone on this year. We've lived through a pandemic. We're living through a crazy election. everywhere you look, there's something else that's going on. Just this past week, there have been 2 hurricanes in the matter of like 3 days. There's all kinds of stuff that could be stressing you out that maybe you're not even thinking about. I know that imposter syndrome shows up for me a lot more when I'm tired, when I'm physically tired, and when I'm emotionally tired, when I'm burned out. I tend to take on way too much and feel like I can do it all at the same time. And then I make commitments to people to do it all at the same time. And so I get burned out and overworked, and I get to the point where I just can't function. And sometimes I'm stressed out from something else. Maybe it's an argument with a friend, or maybe there's something going on in my family, or maybe I'm just not feeling well myself. All of those things exacerbate that feeling of I'm not enough. I can't do this. In order to combat those feelings and to make sure that you're not getting to that point of exhaustion, it's important for you to take some extra time for yourself. Take some time for self-care. My favorite things to do are to take a bubble bath. I take a bath almost every single day. I just recently moved to a new apartment where I have a bathtub again, and I'm so excited because I lived without a bathtub for about a year, and I don't think I ever want to do that again. I would also suggest going for a long walk. Here in Boston, it's been in the upper 60s and the lower 70s, so it's like perfect. I feel like fall is coming a little bit early, but that's the perfect time to go outside and go for a long walk and just stop thinking about everything that's going on and give yourself some space to just breathe. Another thing that I love to do is to treat myself to my favorite food. Food is my favorite coping mechanism. So that's usually the one that I go to first. Another thing that you can do to get past imposter syndrome is to realize that you don't have to do everything at once. I have tons and tons and tons of ideas. I've written all of them down because I'm terrified I'm going to forget them. And these ideas usually come to me at random times when I don't have time to act on them right away. So I have a note app on my phone. I have Google Keep, which is another type of note app. I run my whole business off of Google Drive. So I have a bunch of Google Docs files that are just, usually when they say Untitled, I know that that's a whole list of things that I want to do. I have several of them. But I tend to take on way too much. I have all of these ideas and I'm like, okay, cool. I could do this and this and this and this. And then I think that I can do all of this in 1 week. And I get overwhelmed. And then I start feeling like, oh, I can't do this. So one of the things that I like to do is when I'm feeling like a fraud, like, who am I to do this? I'll sit down and say, okay, is there something from the outside going on? Is there something else that's stressing me out? Can I really actually do all of this? What's the most important thing that I need to do this week? I love to spend some time every single morning writing in my journal. And at the end of my writing, it's just kind of like a brain dump. Like everything that's going on in my head, let me just write it down and get it out of there so I can stop thinking about it. And then at the end of the page, I write down the 3 most important things that I need to get done today. So when I'm having a day where I feel overwhelmed and confused and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do next, I have so much to do, I'll go back to my journal and say, okay, these were the 3 most important things, so let me start with this. And that keeps me on track and keeps me going in the right direction. The next thing that you can do is believe in your dreams. We touched on this a little bit. A lot of us have really, really big dreams, especially if you're like me and you're dreaming of a $50 million house that just seems so crazy and outrageous and impossible. Especially for me, I come from a family that's very working class, and I've never really had a lot of money in my life. It seems like the more money that I make, the more bills that I have. So I always have the same amount of money to spend, even though I make more money, which isn't very much, right? So dreaming of a $50 million house seems really impossible. But the thing is, if you don't believe that you can achieve that, then you never will. You've killed your dream before you've even started. And that really is worst case scenario, right? Because you're already living in worst case scenario. I feel like worst case scenario for me is working in a job that I hate for the rest of my life. Feeling stuck, not feeling like I have any type of freedom, and feeling like there's no way out. But that's how I got started with my business. That's how I got started with my podcast. I'm already living in worst case scenario. And I bet you are too. You already have a job that you hate. You already have a boss you can't stand. You already don't have enough money. You already feel completely stuck. There is already not enough people reading your blog or watching your videos. You're already in worst case scenario. So it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're doing something, you can get out of that situation. Every little thing that you do is going to help. Whatever you do can only help. Even if it doesn't work right away, you're still trying, you're still learning, and that's what counts. Every little bit of progress, every little thing that you learn is going to help you. If you don't put yourself out there, you will fail. That's worst case scenario. That's the true worst case scenario. If you don't write that blog post or make that video, no one will have the opportunity to interact with you. No one will see what you're making. You won't be able to help anyone. If you don't write that book or make that course, no one will have the opportunity to buy your products. You don't have a chance to help people or to change their lives if you don't put yourself out there in some kind of way. It really is all about what you believe. If you allow yourself to stay stuck in that mentality of, I'm a fraud, I can't do this, who am I to do this? Who's going to listen to me? Then you will stay in that worst case scenario that you're in. But if you recognize that that's just imposter syndrome, that everybody feels that way, and you don't have to let it stop you, then you can move on to something better and you can say, okay, I may not be Kathy Heller, I may not be Amy Porterfield, but I do know a lot. I know a lot more than some people know, and I can help them. I want to help them. This is my calling. I know it's my calling, and I'm going to put everything that I can into it. I'm not going to stay stuck. I am going to aim for a $50 million mansion or whatever your dream is. Now, I know the next question that you have is, how do I believe in myself? Because it seems like it's really easy, right? You can just sit here and say, okay, you just need to believe in yourself. Great. How do I do that? What's the next step? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. The first thing is to start small. If you've never believed in yourself, if you've been around a bunch of people who don't believe in you and they just run you down all the time, then you have to start small. I mean, the first thing I would tell you is to get away from those kind of people, because you don't need that in your life. You have enough of that in your own head. I have enough of that in my own head. And it's a difficult process trying to get rid of all of those people who don't believe in you, but it's important. You have to start small with your goals. Commit to something that you know that you can do, and you'll be able to show yourself that you are capable of believing in yourself. You're capable of carrying on something that you told yourself that you're going to do. Once you have that small little thing, you can keep building. You can do something bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and prove to yourself that you can do the things that you're saying that you can do. Another thing that I like to do is look at what I've done in the past, because there's been a lot of situations in my life where I felt like I'm not going to make it through this, or situations where I've had this really, really big dream or done something that a lot of people said I couldn't do. So I like to look back at those things when I'm feeling, like I don't know if I can do this. I look back at some of those things and I'm like, you know what? I did that. I can do this. The next thing is that clarity comes with action. You had this big dream, right? If you're like me, you're looking at this $50 million house and you're like, I want that. I don't know what to do. What do I do now? You're not just going to know. A lot of us don't just have these psychic flashes where we'll be like, oh, okay, this is exactly what I need to do. You're probably still going to feel lost and you might still feel like a fraud. But it's important for you to take action. The clarity that you're looking for, it comes with action. We get clues of what to do next at each stage of the process. No one knows how your path will evolve. This is from Kathy Heller in her amazing book that's called Don't Keep Your Day Job. She's absolutely right. If you feel like you don't have any clarity, you're not taking enough action. You need to do something. Even if you are absolutely sure that what you're doing is the exact wrong thing to do, and you don't know what the right thing is to do, then do the wrong thing. Because you will see the right thing. As long as you're taking action, the right thing will come to you. I promise you. The next thing that you need to do is be brave. You are already so much braver than you give yourself credit for. I'm positive of that. But believing in yourself requires you to be brave sometimes. You're going to have to put yourself out there. You're going to have to face people saying things about you. Maybe more than likely they won't say it to your face. They're probably going to send you a message on social media that you're not going to like. I've gotten so many of them. I can't even begin to tell you. But you have to learn how to be brave. That's part of the process. But like I said, I'm positive that you already are. You've come this far, and I'm positive that you can find 3 examples in your life where you've already been incredibly brave. And you can look back at those and say, okay, look, I made it through that. I could do this. The next thing is to measure your success by the effort that you put in, not by your results. This is really, really difficult for me, but it's incredibly important. I like to measure my success by the number of views that my podcast gets, the number of downloads that it gets, the number of people who read my blog, the number of people who follow me on social media. But that's a really bad way to measure your success, because your success should be whether or not you recorded a video, not how many people watched it. Your success should be measured by how many posts you put on social media, not by how many people like them. And the quality of your content, not the comments that are on them. It should be a measure of the effort that you put in. That's how you should say, okay, I've become successful, because there's going to be a lot of times in your business where you put in a lot of effort and you don't see those results. So if you're measuring your success by the results, you're going to get frustrated really, really quickly. There's going to be a lot of times where it takes a lot of effort. And if you're measuring your success by the effort, you're going to feel good about yourself. And that's what you want. That's the habit that you want to create. All right. So I have a couple of resources for you. There is a blog post on my blog called How to Get Past Self-Doubt as an Introvert Entrepreneur. I hope that you go and check it out. You can find a link for it in the show notes. You can also find it at sarahkuhn.co. Also, one more reminder, you can watch the video podcast at youtube.com/infjwoman, and you can find all of the show notes at podcast.sarahkuhn.co. And one more final reminder, if you are interested in growing your Instagram following, I wrote an ebook called 10,000 Followers. It will show you how to attract a massive and authentic audience on Instagram in less than 6 months. I hit 10,000 followers in less than 6 months. And in this book, I'm showing you the exact details and strategy that I used to do that. And for a limited time, you can get it for only $7. You can find it at sarahkuhn.co, and the link is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. I really hope that I've inspired you today to dream big, and I really can't wait to hear about all of your dreams. and your goals. You can send them to me in the comments. You can send them to me on Instagram. I would love to hear about it. Please make sure that you subscribe wherever you watch or listen, and send us a like and a review. It helps other people to find us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week.